Welcome back to A Simple Low Carb Life. We are beginning the Low Carb Pantry Overhaul Video 2 in Module 6. And we're going to learn some more ways that you can spruce up your low carb pantry so that you'll have a lot more variety in your home. So that you'll have all the basic tools that you need to make some great low carb foods. So let's look at a few of those ways that we can expand our pantry. How can we do that? We've learned about meats and veggies and other things. Now what else can we do? Well, let's think about some snacks. There are a number of snacks that you can have in your home that can take the place of the ones that we're used to having, all those chips and crunchy items that most people spend a lot of money on in the grocery store if they're eating high carb. Well, those are really gone in this way of eating. So we often will miss crunchy, salty things. Well, there are a number of things that you can have that are crunchy and salty that are allowed, that are low carb. So what would those be? A few of those are Sea Point Farms is a company that roasts edamame, dry roasts them in various flavors. They have wasabi and lightly salted, at least at the time of this video. And they're found in most grocery stores, at least on the West Coast. So they're quite good. A nice nut replacement. Also, you can buy a number of different preparations of roasted seaweed, which sounds like a strange snack, but it's very salty and extremely crunchy, and even most children like it. So it does grow on you. It's quite a nice snack. Very, very low in carbs. Pork rinds is another one. You might be thinking, pork rinds? What in the world? Why would you be able to eat that on a low carb diet? Well, yes, it's high in fat because it is cracklings from pork skin, but it has 0 carbs. So unless you're eating a whole bag of it, it's a great crunchy snack to have. And you can find them in spice, highly spiced, or you can find them that are just lightly salted or not spiced at all. So it's a great thing to have on hand as a snack. Also, if you put pork rinds in a food processor, it makes a fantastic replacement for breading. So if you want to have breaded pork chops or breaded chicken or fried chicken, pan-fried chicken, if you, instead of flour, use pork rinds, it makes a fantastic tasting, way better than flour, replacement for that. You can have roasted nuts in limited amounts. Remember, you want to stay under 1/4 of a cup a day on any kind of nuts. And ideally, if you don't have nuts in the first month or two of beginning this way of eating, then you'll be less likely to have them become a trigger food. You could have 1 serving of hummus a day, which is also a nice snack to have. Just stick with less than 2 tablespoons a day because they do have some carbs in them. Laughing Cow cheese wedges make a great snack. You can use radishes, celery, jicama, other crunchy veggies that you can use to dip this in. Also, if you're adventurous in making some low-carb crackers, it makes a nice spread for that. Baby Bell cheeses are little mini cheeses that are encased in a wax casing, just like a large block of cheese would be. Those are also quite good, come in different flavors. There's a company called Crunch-A-Mame that roasts edamame as well with different seasonings, and you can often find those. You can find those on our online store as well. Any crunchy snacks that you think might be able to be used in a low-carb diet, really read the label, because most of these things that claim that they're low-carb really are made with wheat, which is not low-carb at all, and again has appetite stimulant properties, and other things. So it's very hard to find commercially prepared low-carb crunchy snacks. You usually have to find them online. So look at our online store, and you will basically be able to at least buy them online, and there are a number of them online. It's just, unfortunately, locally, it's slim pickings, as they say. What about cooking, baking, and alternate sweeteners? So if you want to bake anything or cook some things that traditionally use flour, what in the world do you use and have in your pantry? Well, number one, for chicken stock, it's a nice thing to have bouillon on hand. And also, bouillon, remember, is very high in sodium, so it's a great sodium replacer for the diuretic effect or the water loss effect of this way of eating. You should have unsweetened cocoa powder in your home as well. If you like chocolate, then you can sweeten it with alternate sweetener and use a substitution milk like coconut milk or almond milk that's unsweetened, and you can make a great cocoa out of that, hot cocoa. If you have some unflavored, unsweetened, or sugar-free gelatin, nice to have that in your home. If you buy sugar-free Jello, it is sweetened with aspartame, so I'm not recommending that to use on a regular basis. So if you buy just unsweetened plain gelatin, you can add whatever flavorings you'd like and make your own Jello dishes. Xylitol, erythritol, and stevia are excellent low-carb sweeteners to have to replace the alternatives, which would be sugar and agave and honey. Xanthan gum and guar gum are agents that really can mimic the properties of gluten. They basically make particles that are in any kind of a baked good remain suspended. So it's nice to add to ice cream, for example, so that whatever you're mixing in your ice cream does not all settle to the bottom, the heavier items. So if you're making any cookies or cakes where you want to have whatever ingredients suspended throughout the cake, for example, then you're going to have to add some xanthan gum or guar gum, or the heavy ingredients will fall to the bottom and the lighter ones will remain on the top. When you're cooking with flour, flour contains gluten, and gluten actually does what the role of xanthan gum and guar gum will do. But since low-carb flours do not contain gluten, you have to add some property that will take the place of that, and that would be xanthan gum or guar gum. Also, you want to have a variety of protein powders in your home so that you can make various baked goods and have thickening agents with different flavors to them. So you could have whey, hemp, egg white, and soy protein powders in your home. You could also buy hemp powder or green pea powder, especially if you're vegan or whey or soy intolerant. What about flours and meal substitutes? Almond meal is probably the most widely used replacement for flour, wheat flour, because you can use it in a 1-to-1 ratio just like you would flour. So if you have a recipe that calls for 2 cups of flour, you can use 2 cups of almond meal and a non-sugar sweetener if it calls for sugar, and you can easily tweak a recipe by doing that with a one-on-one replacement. Also, flax seeds, flaxseed meal, either golden or brown, are nice to have to add fiber to your low-carb baked goods. Also taste good. Dehydrated unsweetened shredded coconut is a nice additive, very low in carbs. Coconut flour is another widely used replacement for wheat flour, but coconut flour acts like a super sponge, so you really have to add usually twice the amount of liquids that a recipe calls for if you use coconut flour. And it's a little harder to deal with because if you get too much coconut flour in it, it's either too dry or too moist if you add too much fluid to it. So when you're using coconut flour, at first, best to use a recipe because you will have to experiment a bit with it. The way I personally use coconut flour is I use predominantly almond meal and just add a tablespoon or 2 at most of coconut flour when I want more moisture in my recipe. You can also use peanut flour, which a company called PB2, made by Bell Plantation, makes a really great peanut flour that's a great thickening agent for foods. Also can help you with any Thai flavorings. If you like peanut sauce, it's a really great way to make that because peanut butter itself doesn't mix in very well because it has too much fat in it. Hazelnut meal or flour, which is just ground up hazelnuts. You can also make these at home, by the way. You can buy a bunch of almonds or hazelnuts or cashews and put them in your food processor and process them until they are the consistency of flour. If you overdo it, you'll end up making almond butter or cashew butter or hazelnut butter. So stop before it starts to become butter-like if you're making your own. Hemp seed hearts or hemp powder also are a great additive and substitute. Hemp seeds are really tasty. They taste like quinoa without the carbs. There are also some commercial low-carb baking mixes that you can buy, and those can be found online. You can look at our online store and find a number of those. Just read the labels. What about healthy oils and fats for cooking? Well, coconut oil, avocado oil, olive oil, peanut oil, canola, sesame, ghee, clarified butter, conventional butter, lard, bacon fat, truffle oils, all great to have in your low-carb pantry. I would only use the ones that have high heat tolerance or they break down into toxic substances for cooking. The other oils I would just use to drizzle on when you don't have to have high heat applied. So coconut oil, avocado oil, bacon fat, lard, clarified butter, ghee, those can all tolerate high heat. The other things, just use them when you're needing low heat. What about spices? Well, there's a number of spices that you can use, and here's a list of things. But basically, you want to have a variety of spices in your kitchen, which is the absolute key to making your foods taste different. That very same cabbage, you can spice in with vinegar and make it almost like sauerkraut. You can add Thai seasonings and make it Thai flavored. You can put Indian seasonings. You can put Mexican seasonings. Really, spices are the key in any kitchen, but particularly in the low-carb kitchen. But just if you're making anything or buying anything that's in a paste form, read the labels because they are notorious for putting sneaky carbs in these pastes and curry sauces that you buy. So usually you have to buy them dry, like a dry rub, for example, and make your own paste out of it. May Ploy is a brand that you can often find that's pretty low in carb for Thai spices. But beware, read the labels really well to make sure that it's really low carb. Here's a list of some more spices that you could have: cinnamon, clove, nutmeg, pumpkin spice, cardamom, number of things. Sweeteners that are non-sugar, you want either stevia, xylitol, or erythritol. All three have different properties, so have those in your pantry. Unsweetened coconut cream, fantastic tasting. Makes a nice addition to a lot of foods, especially if you're making sauces if you like Thai dishes, which I love. Dehydrated unsweetened shredded coconut is another thing to have in your pantry. And there's so many more. But use your imagination and just read the labels. Really, any low-carb spices or sauces that you might like are fine for use in the low-carb pantry. Just, and this is in red for a reason, make sure to read the nutritional labels to avoid adding sneaky carbs from the sauces or spices to your food. It's a real bummer to really carefully plan out a low-carb meal and then ruin it unknowingly by putting a high-carb sauce on it. What about drinks? Well, there's carbonated and non-carbonated drinks that you can have that are sweetened with stevia or Splenda. There's lots of those. There's Cascade Ice, there's Spree, and a whole lot of other brands. Powerade Zero is an electrolyte drink that you can find that has 0 carbs in it, and Powerade is kind enough on that particular version of Powerade to put in bold letters ZERO, so you know that it's 0 carbs. Tea and coffee. Just avoid drinking caffeinated versions later in the day. Remember, caffeine lasts 12 hours, so you don't want your sleep to be messed up or you will gain weight. There are a number of flavored waters, a number of water enhancers. Just read the labels and make sure that there's 0 carb and 0 calorie. Well, you might be asking, where can you find these items? Well, grocery stores are one place to start. But where else? So there's local grocery stores. There's online sources that you can find things. And unfortunately, quite frankly, most low-carb, commercially prepared items have to be found online. Most of them are not in local grocery stores, but you can look. If it's a health food store, it's more likely to have it. So just be sure and pick up every item and read the nutritional label to make sure of the serving size as well, because often things aren't low carb unless it's in some tiny enough serving size that no one would limit themselves to that much. So be careful, read the labels. You'll hear this 1,000 times during our video series, but read the labels. If you can find organic products and grass-fed meats that are free of pesticides and other toxins, you'll do far better. For a whole lot of reasons, you'll be much healthier if you do. And visit our online store. There's a link on the screen. We have a very extensive list and are adding all the time on our online store. Even if you don't buy them from us, at least you can have an idea of what is out there. So here's a big one. Why is alcohol not on the grocery list? Well, let's talk about that. Alcohol has not been mentioned as being permissible on this way of eating. Now, why is that exactly? Well, we're going to find that out. It's like the big elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about. Well, we're going to talk about it. According to our liver's point of view, let's just say, alcohol is always toxic in the liver's point of view. So any amount of alcohol, the liver will consider toxic and needs to be dealt with right away by the liver, and it will suspend every other function that the liver does until it metabolizes and gets rid of alcohol. So one thing that is very unique to the liver is the way that it processes alcohol. So let's say that you're in ketosis and you decide to have a shot of tequila. And you're not adding anything to it. You're not adding any mixers. So one shot of pure alcohol has 0 carbs. Okay, that shouldn't be a problem if you're in ketosis. It's not going to add any carbs. So what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is this. The liver will require about 2 to 3 hours to remove and metabolize alcohol from the body per ounce of alcohol. So the liver is unique in that for this particular toxin that's introduced to the body, the liver will preferentially metabolize alcohol before metabolizing fat or doing any other metabolism. So even though you may be in ketosis, no fat metabolism can occur until alcohol has been metabolized. So if you drink 1 shot of tequila, then you're not going to burn any fat at all, even though you're in ketosis, for 2 to 3 hours. Well, let's say you drink 2 drinks. Well, you're not going to metabolize any fat at all until those 2 drinks are dealt with. And that's another 2 to 3 hours. So 4 to 6 hours, then you're not going to be metabolizing fat, even though you're still in ketosis. So if you drink daily, that's a number of hours of the day that you will not be burning fat because of the liver needing to metabolize alcohol first. If you have a drink on a weekend, once a week while you're in weight loss, that's no big deal, in my opinion. If you don't drink at all, even better. But if you feel that you want 1 drink on a weekend, then just realize that even though you're in ketosis, you will not be metabolizing any fat for that period of time. And also, if you drink alcohol on any kind of a diet, but particularly a low-carb diet, you're not generally eating other things with it, and you're certainly not eating bread and crackers and all the things that people normally eat to help slow the absorption of alcohol. So you will get drunk very quickly when you drink when you're on a low-carb diet. So if you drink 2 drinks and you're not eating, you're just going to be completely drunk. So be very careful if you're drinking any alcohol for a number of reasons while in this way of eating. Also remember that alcohol contains absolutely empty carbs. It has no nutritional value whatsoever, and every gram of alcohol contains 7 calories, whether it has 0 carbs or not. It still has calories. So what I would suggest is very carefully assess your situation and consider whether alcohol is worth it or not. it can stall your weight loss, pure and simple. So think about that and how you want to balance that out in your life. It's entirely up to you. But if you know all of the things that can happen when you drink alcohol, then you can make an intelligent decision. All right, we've just completed Module 6, Video 2. And in the next module, you're going to learn where you can find some great low-carb recipes. So again, take a break in between, try to absorb the material, and we'll see you in the next one.